24. We have a interesting agenda this evening, and we will get to it now. I move we open the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Karen Chubak. I'm here on behalf of CGA Studio.
I could announce that.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Number one on the agenda is 107 Palisade Street, public hearing for proposed subdivision of existing lot for construction of new residence. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry about that. My name is Karen Chubak. I'm here on behalf of CGA Studio, representing Maria Teresa Lorenz and Richard Lorenz, owners of 107 Palisade Street. This is our third meeting here with you for this project. We are coming to discuss the subdivision and proposed new residence at 107 Palisade Street. I'll go through the project in brief overview. You've heard about it before, and I'll mainly focus on the changes that we've made. Yes. We have looked at the property before. You're aware that we are proposing subdivision into the south portion we're referring to as Lot A, proposed Lot A, and the north portion, proposed Lot B. This is the existing house on proposed Lot A and the area of proposed Lot B at the bottom there. And I will focus mainly on the changes if that's helpful, and if we want to go into more detail, I can. This is the site plan that we've reviewed with you. The main changes here are that per the comments we received, we have introduced a front porch spanning almost the whole width of the house. We really, in having drawn up the street view of the properties across the street, we really feel like this was a great comment and really enhanced the design of the project. It's contextual. We saw those front porches on the houses across the street, and you'll see in the elevations this has really become a great design element for us. We are requesting a waiver from the planning board for the width of the front porch. The front porch, we believe, otherwise would be limited to half of the width of the building, so to 12 feet. We're proposing a porch that is 20 feet long, so it is in excess by 8 feet of the limited width. We are in compliance relative to the depth of the porch, as the projection into the front yard setback is 6 feet, which is less than half of the front setback. We also have reconfigured the stair at the back of the house per, once again, a suggestion that was given to us by this board, which we feel was a great change to the project. We've broken up that stair and introduced an intermediate landing, a lower landing, which we feel is a good move functionally, and then you'll also see on the elevations. We have revised the coverage charts to reflect the front porch. We are allowed to deduct 75 square feet of that porch per the code, but the porch is bigger than 75 square feet, so we have accounted for that in our coverage calculations. The project is very close to the 60% impermeable coverage allowed, but it is under that 60%. So the project is still compliant with regard to its requirements, but we will still, all new paving will be permeable pavers as we had agreed at the zoning board.
Good. Thank you.
So I will move on. These are the streetscapes updated per the revised front elevation, which we will look at in more detail. Over here on the first floor plan, you could see the front porch is 20 feet by 7 feet, and the stair reconfiguration that I was referring to is over here in the back, where we've introduced a landing. And we will look at, and then also you could start to see how we've articulated jogs on the building, but I will go into that in more detail on the next sheet. So here the floor plan remains roughly the same, with a smaller unit in the front and then a slightly larger unit in the back. Both units have the second and third floor, and then the rear unit has access to the roof with a roof deck that's really tucked into the roof line to be quiet in that way. I will focus here on the reconfigured stair. We really think this works nicely to break it up and in terms of safety. And then we also have worked pretty hard to introduce jogs along the north and south sides of the building so that there is a change in plane at a change in materiality. And we really think this was a great comment that we got because this was something we really wanted to do, and this pushed us, your comment really pushed us to take a hard look at the plan and find a way to make this happen. So that was a good change. Over here, you can see the design element of the front porch, which we love. We think it's really charming and allows us to have, you know, two instances in the front of standing seam metal roof. And then I've put the plans here below so that you could see the plans as they relate to the elevations and understand where we are jogging the building at the changes in material. We feel like this really breaks up these long elevations, but yet you have the gables and the roof line really tying this all together. And those are the main changes. In addition, over here, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go. Oh, I guess I could look at it here. On the south elevation, you could see that we have broken up the stair with that intermediate landing and introduced lattice to really tie the stair into the south elevation. And the stair now is more of a design element and less of a stair that happens to be there in that sense. So we really, you know, took that comment and have, you know, made it part of the building in that way. And the material scheme for the house remains similar to what we discussed. We're looking at a mix of hardy plank lap siding and board and batten. And as I mentioned, standing seam roof at the front roofs over there, and then architectural shingles at the rest of the roof areas. And I will go down to the planting plan. The landscape plan is, as we had discussed with you, just adjusted for the change to the front porch. We're still looking at a, you know, small-scale residential landscape at the front. We like the idea that the cars are tucked in the back and you really read greenery at the front. We've kept the buffer between this property and the property to the south, as we had discussed at the zoning board. And that is what was changed over here. And then I have revised drawings from Hudson Engineering, which are the ones that were submitted to you, with the exception that Hudson has revised their vehicle turning diagrams to, and I'll skip straight to those. So, and I believe Hudson might be on the call in case there are questions for them. There was a question about the vehicle turning diagrams, and so Hudson has added all the cars so that you could see where the other cars would be parked when one car is turning out, because there was some concern expressed about being able to get out of all the spots if there were other cars parked in those spots.
Good.
And that's, and we also, we submitted a preliminary plat drawing for review. I can zoom in on it here. It's a bit hard to see, but this is the. Are there any questions?
This is a public hearing. I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Before we do, I just want to make one other I think it's like way better. I appreciate all the kind of changes you made. I still have one thing I want to, if you stop in this elevation, that to me seems architecturally still uncomfortable, which is that you have these two kind of pitched roof, you know, these volumes that you've done a kind of corresponding change in the massing of the plan, which I appreciate. But what still looks funny to me is the one to the south or to the west still looks like it's going to look like it's sort of like this mass is kind of hanging over, it's unsupported. Like, in fact, both of the masses look kind of cut off in a way that, and I don't know if I think some of it is maybe changing the way you articulate the bottom of those two volumes. The one that is closest to the street, the easterly one, I guess the foundation is also, right? That's what that fine line is, right? Is the change in in the massing underneath that piece, is that right? The whole foundation bumps out. But where you have the cutout for the garage, you're not doing that, so that the building looks, that pitched roof volume seems somehow unsupported in a funny way. It's kind of hanging out there. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the solution is. I don't know if maybe the whole base
Steps out.
should come forward, and then both of these things could sit on that, even if you had the cutout for the garage, I'm not sure. And I think you have the same problem on the other side, right? If you go to the north-facing elevation, you have the same kind of condition. You have kind of one volume, looks like a vertical volume that's supported on something, and the other one is kind of like hanging out there, undercut by the opening for the garage. So I don't know, like, I just think you should kind of work that out. I don't, like I said, maybe one thing is to just bring the whole base of the building out so that both of them sit on this thing and you flash over the part of it that is in between.
So I do think on the other elevation, and I need to look at our base, our lowest floor plan to confirm, we were tackling that because we were sort of troubled with that because we realized, as you said, that like the breaks in the upper volumes do not align with the breaks in the lower volumes.
Yeah.
And so in a part, we were intending to bring the building straight across and then have a recess, as you mentioned, and sort of flash around it, and the building above would be recessed up.
So that the whole base would
Yes,
come
the
out.
whole base is coming out and the building above is recessed.
And those
up.
two volumes
line up
would
with
sit
the
on the
base.
base.
Yes.
Right. I
That
think
was
that
our
would be
intention.
better. Otherwise, I think that the changes, now that you have these changes in volume that correspond to the changes in material, I think that that works. And
Yeah.
How much would you be bumping that out?
We are bumping it out. I
6
think it's-
inches or something.
I dimensioned it here. I think it was 2 inches.
Oh, it's not a lot.
No, sorry, we are bumping it out 6 inches, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, enough,
that's enough to, yeah.
enough to give,
Yeah, yeah,
and you'll return the material
yes.
right around the corner.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, in that sense, like we were struggling whether this space over here,
Right.
see Rob, this space, whether it would be in the plane of this over here or of this over here, and we decided to keep it in the plane of the outermost piece of the building and have this be recessed over here, and as you mentioned, having a flash. Piece.
Between them, and maybe.
And in that sense, maybe this line should not be there, so the base.
Right, that line would then
Yes.
go away.
Yes, yes, I think that's an error. This is intended to be all in the same plane, in the outermost plane over here.
I still
That would
also,
be the same over here. This would all be out in the same plane, and this is recessed in.
I would still think about, even if it's now sitting on the space, about there being some kind of change in the surface material before it hits that base. Something that articulates.
I mean, I think it would inevitably, maybe if we have a flashing like that, there
There's
would be
flashing,
some
maybe,
sort of
yeah.
return detail there, yeah. Yeah, like a freeze board that ties into where we have to flash it at recess.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
something like that would be nice as to
Yeah.
create a bottom for those pieces. But otherwise, I think it's good.
Yeah,
I
But
wanna
anyway,
thank
it's a
you for your
public hearing,
comments, really.
right? So-
It is a public hearing.
that's good though.
Anyone wish to speak on this application?
Anybody online? Okay.
They're just moving.
Close the public hearing?
No. It is a public hearing. Right, we opened the public hearing.
If there are no
I don't think
comments.
there's anybody,
Yes.
right, there's nobody to speak on the public.
All right, nobody online? Okay,
No.
so we, and we do not have a resolution for this, right?
No, we don't, because there was a number of changes that the applicant was providing. Then we also had a couple questions on the impervious coverage, which we sent as part of our memo. So
Okay.
I think next month, if you'd like, it can, if you
We
want
could
to
have a-
authorize me to have a resolution ready, we can do that.
Yeah, please.
And how does the subdivision get, is that a separate resolution from, or the rest, how does that relate to the rest of the approvals?
So
that we're
the
making?
subdivision is, will be a resolution along with site plan approval, so you're having
Okay.
subdivision, site plan, and then AHRB approval.
Okay,
Yeah, good, thank you.
all right, thanks.
Do we have to keep the public hearing open?
I'll defer to Dan on that.
I mean, you can close it if you'd like, but leaving it open allows any last minute
Yeah, I guess.
comments.
There's no,
Okay,
Yeah, why not?
continue it.
Why not? Okay,
You want to move that we continue the public hearing until next month?
yes, you could.
Okay. Do we have a second?
all in
Rob.
favor?
All in favor?
Second,
Okay, all right.
Second.
I did.
No, see you next month.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next item on our agenda is 11 Lyman Place, continuation of public hearing for proposed subdivision for 2 new single-family houses.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm Christina Griffin, the architect, and I'm here to take you through our presentation. I'm also here with, I think, Dave Balaj, one of the owners, who's at the meeting. I am going to share the screen. Just a second. Okay, can everyone see the drawings?
Yes.
Okay. Now, we're here to show you the latest set of drawings that we have. We have, to remind you that we started out with these two-story homes, and originally we had 2-car garages in the front. We changed the design, we changed the site plan so that we would have a 1-car garage, and each house would have a porch in the front with the 1 outdoor parking space. We have developed these schemes, and I will be showing you the latest drawings. These are the photos of the site. At the top left are the 2 photos of the existing house that was going to be removed. And then down below are the houses of neighboring homes, the white house on the left and the blue, yellow, and the other like gray house to the right down the street. We have revised our neighborhood plan, which is this plan down here. We had shown you a tax map earlier, and now we have actually put down showing the dimensions of the neighboring homes. I did this based on the property cards because it's a more accurate way of comparing the footprint of the proposed buildings to the surrounding buildings. I can blow that up if you'd like. So you could just take a look at that. I just think this is important because if you look at the neighborhood map, you'll see that these houses are really similar in the size of the footprint. I also found out from the property cards that the house at 19 Lyman is 2,508 square feet. These 2 houses are 2,710 square feet. The lots will be 60 by 110. So they're going to be 6,600 square feet, which is over the 5,000 square foot minimum. There is the house on 10 Manor Place, which is on a lot contiguous to these lots, is 3,316 square feet. And then the house that our office designed across the street is 2,440 square feet. So the area of these homes at 2,710, they do fall within the range of the size of the houses. The houses down the road are a little bit smaller. We haven't changed our streetscape. Hold on, I'm going to go back. But since this is the public hearing, I'll show that to you as well. On the top row is the south side of Lyman Place, showing our new houses at 11 Lyman, 3 Lyman to the left, and the other houses 1923 to the right. You can see that the street has a mix of well, almost all 2-story houses, some 1.5-story homes. So our new proposed homes also have 2 stories. There's a mix of roof shapes. We have some gable roofs, some hip roofs. So we are proposing that one house is gable, one is hipped. They have different heights and they have different entries, and we'll show that to you later. On the opposite side of the street, there's quite a variety, but mostly 2-story or 1.5-story. There's 20 Lyman, which we designed, which is 1.5-story. And then at 8 Lyman, we have a gable roof. So, we have thought very hard about, how these houses fit within the range of styles that exist and how to make the 2 houses different. This is our exterior lighting plan, which we made a separate plan from our site plan. Here are our sky exposure diagram details, just to show how each house fits within the sky exposure regulations for the site. This is our landscaping plan. We have a tree duration calculation down at the bottom to show that the proposed trees the aggregate dimension of the total diameter of the trees will be, of the proposed trees will be more than 50% of the ones that are removed, so that we're going to comply with the code. This is our color scheme. This has been revised from the original to show how, 2 different houses, one with a hip roof, one with a gable, one with different shades of taupe and a more taupey gray, and one to the right, shades of a more cool gray color and bluish gray. The house on the left has lap siding on the bottom. It has tapered square columns on stucco bases, has a hipped porch roof with a large bay window interrupting it. The windows are a craftsman style type window, where you have a sort of a 1/3, 2/3 vertical proportion. And then we have a small dormer at the top. Also, the siding on the second floor, hard to see here, but it's going to be a shingle siding. This is like a craftsman type style home. To the right, on lot 1, we have a different house that is more a gable roof with board and batten in the gables, a 2/2 pattern at the windows, simplified porch with square columns, and we have a different garage door design for this house and the other house. And our next slide is showing a street view looking down the street. These houses are 32 feet wide. The blue house, which is at 19 Lyman, is 30 feet wide. Here is our aerial view looking down at the 2 new houses. You can see the house in the back. That house is 3,300 square feet. These 2 are 2,700. There's a house to the right at 19 Lyman, and to the left with a gable roof. So you see you have a whole mix of, and if you're looking down here, you see that you see gable roofs across the street. You see a hipped roof. The houses are similar in shape and size to some of the houses, like the White House in the back. And we also added a street view. Rob Lane asked me if I could get this view. We had trouble getting the view I think you were looking for, but we were able to do it, and that's because where the 19 Lyman is, which is the simple box here between the yellow house and the proposed house. This we had to model because there was a tree here. So we replaced the tree with the house so that you could see just at least the shape of that house in place. Just by the way, the front yard setback to our proposed homes is the same as to this house at 19 Lyman, which is something we responded to at the request of the board. These are our 2D elevations and floor plans. And now we have a subdivision plat that has been prepared for the 2 lots, showing the proposed footprint of the 2 future homes. And that is the extent of our presentation. Do we I'd be happy to answer any questions?
This is a continuation of a public hearing. I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So Christina, I guess for me, the street view of that particular, when I was there today, and I've been there many times now, it seems like it's very flat, where where that site is, it's actually a lot higher in elevation than I believe what we're kind of looking at here. And I understand it's a tough thing to kind of simulate what you think will be built there, but I feel like when I was there, that these buildings would be a lot higher than the house next to it, which is that blue house, right? So is this really accurate? I don't know.
We tried very hard to make this
No, I
accurate,
understand.
you know,
I'm just saying.
and what we did is we located the corner of the house next door and we modeled it. And then we had to estimate where these houses are.
Right.
But, you know, it's gently sloping down.
Right. Because from
and,
that view, it kind of seems like it's a straight street, to me, anyway. And I feel like when I'm looking at that property and across the street at that site, that property actually sits a lot higher, so it seems like those volumes kind of overcast the other homes.
Yeah, there's something not right about this view, because the vanishing point of, if you were to just draw a series of lines across the eaves of the other buildings, you would find what the vanishing point is for the perspective view, and the buildings, the way you put them in there, would not be receding to the same vanishing point.
Just a second, I might be able to show you. We just did this today. We had a lot of trouble because the houses are so far apart that you have to we need like a drone or something because you have to get up high to get that whole view. So I use Google Earth and there's so many trees in the way. So it's just a struggle to get this to work. Do have another view though that I could show you. You could, hold on a second. It's taking me a little while to get this. Okay. Okay. I'm going to show you another view just to show you how we're, no, not this one. I'm sorry to keep. Okay, this one here. We actually, this view, can everyone see this view here?
Yes.
Okay. Because this one has more of that vanishing line to line up you know, we can work harder on it because we just put this together today. And I think, you know, it's just not easy to do because this house next door is missing in our views. And we need to get this from, we're
Well,
getting it from,
You also have another
Google
view,
Earth.
the street view of lot 1 and 2 houses in our little package here from the other side.
I do, I do. That was put on top of a photograph. And I'll
Okay.
show that to you in just a second. Okay. Can you see this? Can you?
Correct. That's the one I'm speaking of, yes.
Yes. If you walk down the street, this is probably the only way. It's very hard to get the view looking the other way of all these houses. So this was taken from, this is a photograph of the street and the SketchUp superimposed on top of that photograph.
And is that in scale to the neighborhood? Because that looks a lot larger than the other homes. And where would the driveway be? Sorry.
I think
It just looks really big compared to, you know, and I get it, you know, it's superimposed, but I'm not sure
Right.
if that's,
Well, I think you're right. I think it's at a higher elevation. And so, you know, they are
it
gonna,
towers over.
well, it's definitely taller than the blue. It's
Right.
already taller than the blue house. And now,
Right.
and if it's up another 5 or 6 feet in elevation,
Right.
it's definitely gonna be, but, you know, we are in a hilly town. I mean, that's
That
pretty hard to get around that anywhere.
looks like a one-story house.
Yeah, the blue house is very low roof and probably low ceilings because you see how the top of the window is so close to the bottom, to the eave. These are as of right homes, you know, they're meet the zoning code in every way. So I think the houses on the western end are small in general in different ways. But this blue house is actually 2,500 square feet according to the property card. We're proposing, these houses are proposing 2,710 square feet. And the gable roofs are, you know, it has a higher roof line. But if you look at the other side, different houses in the neighborhood, there are lots of gable roofs like this house. So there's a variety here. And I think it's good to take a look at that aerial view because I think that really helps to show, hold on a second. How these houses fit on the street and how they align with the facades of the houses on each side. They even have similar spacing between the houses. And tells you about all the different types of roof lines that exist, lots of gable roofs, some hips. So
I want to bring up a couple of site plan issues. The
Okay.
planning memo dated 2/29 talks about the curb cuts and coordinating those with the DPW. Has that coordination happened?
I don't think so yet, and we're definitely gonna have to look into that. I, I wasn't sure if it went through Dan Romer or we have to initiate that, so, this is something we have to still follow up on.
We have not spoke to DPW about that.
Is that language we can add to the resolution?
Sure, we can do that.
Another concern is the retaining walls. There are retaining walls on 3 sides of this property in the rear, and they're all in really bad condition. And they appear to be pretty much on this property. So we would need some kind of assurance that those are going to be addressed as part of the project.
What do they look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We've discussed it, our team discussed it, and they're going to be evaluated, and we're going to take a look and see whether they can be repaired or replaced, but that still needs to happen. And we will definitely be looking at the adequacy of the structural adequacy of these retaining walls.
We can make that a condition of approval too, if you'd like.
Yeah, the only other concern that we just brought up was material for that. You know, there's cinder block, there's dry stacked granite, there's all kinds of, it's a big potpourri mess right now. Be nice to have something, some kind of a fence, you know, a wall material proposed, so we get an idea what it would look like to the neighbors.
Yeah, they're not allowed to use cinder block anymore. It's in our code. It has to be a stone face or an engineered block.
Okay.
So you feel like that's covered just by the code?
And there's fencing on one
Some-
side, so what would happen with that? Is that,
The fence,
yeah,
as long as it's 6 foot behind the front plane of the house, then it would be compliant.
okay.
And 4 foot and 60% open in the front of the house.
Okay.
I have to say, I'm still concerned. I still feel like after all the sort of nipping and tucking and so on, at the end of the day, I think that your neighborhood site plan kind of tells the story. It isn't that you might not be able to find one building on this street that might be comparable in size or even bigger. But the thing that characterizes that's the street, if you look at that, can you go back to the site plan, to your neighborhood plan? Because it's not just a matter, there are 2 issues. One is size, which in a way, there's 2 elements to size, right? There's square footage and there's the actual apparent massing. And I think if you look at this plan, the 2, even if you hadn't colored in the footprints of the 2 buildings, you would see that it's just out of character with the rest of the street. The houses are extremely, they're not even all beautiful, but they're all very different from each other. They look very different from each other, and the setbacks are different from building to building, and the sizes of the yards and so on. The overall neighborhood has a kind of animation. And I think as long as you're stuck in the sort of the kit size boxes that are there, it's not gonna be possible to make this look contextual. Again, it's not a matter of the total square footage, because you can you can make a building look bigger than it is, or you can make a building look smaller than, 2 buildings with the same square footage can look entirely different in terms of their scale. But that's not happening here. And so my issue is not necessarily with the as of right square footage you're allowed. It's with, at the end of the day, the pairing of these 2 footprints that are just too similar and are not animated enough in a way that that works with the rest of the neighborhood.
You think even if they comply with the code that they're inappropriate?
Yeah, well, there are lots of projects that comply with the code.
Well, but I'm saying if it,
I'm saying that the fact that this scheme conforms to code doesn't mean it's acceptable, right?
Well, we have an excessively similar
Because there's 10 different solutions.
clause in the code.
There are 100 different ways of getting the same square footage on those two sites. Our job is to critique what we're presented with.
No, I
I'm not saying
understand.
they have to make them smaller, I'm just saying they have to be differenter. They have to be
So-
more different from each other and cited in a way that's in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, the rest of the street. I think these are gonna feel very foreign from the
It's
rest of
interesting
the.
because these houses actually were kit back in the early 1900s, so, you know, they were kit houses that
Sure.
were very different.
Sure.
So it's interesting that history, we can't
Yeah, well,
bring it here
yeah, well,
and maintain it.
we're building it now, though. So, no. I mean, I have an interest in this beyond normal because I lived on Luzerne Road with a view of this for several years, so I know the area. And
Yeah, I do too.
there's all sorts of houses up there.
You are. And that's my point.
Yeah.
That is, it's not, and they're not all necessarily even nice, but they're all different. I mean, I guess that's my point.
Well-
I'm not
Yeah.
saying that every one of them is a jewel.
No.
I'm saying that they're all different.
But I
They're
also-
all, and that collectively, that creates a kind of character to
Yeah.
the street and the neighborhood.
And I also think
that
there's a
these
history.
two houses don't support.
And there's a history in that neighborhood that's, I think, important to our village. The same.
You know, I want to mention I'm working on houses built, a sister house, another house right across the street, same design, built in 1890 in Hastings, and I worked on the sugar houses there as well. 5 houses that are the same design. So, you know, you have a lot of these pockets all over that are of homes that are like similar because they're built by the same builder and they have a similar layout or something similar about them, similar in size. So, you know, I think you're making a judgment like that doesn't belong here, but you know, it's not uncommon and it's been done over time, you know, for years. There's lots of Sears houses that are very similar. Sometimes, you know, a few of those houses on the street. But they may be the same size, but they have different roof lines or different details. And that's sort of like been the general concept for this project.
But you agree, Christina, it depends on the context, right? There are places where there are beautiful where there's 5 on a side of a street that are identical that were built at the same time. That's a different thing, right? Those buildings together make a kind of ensemble, right? This doesn't do that. This is the repetition of these forms here is foreign to the rest of, there aren't, you know, I don't know, would it be better if there was 6 of them? Maybe, you know, I don't know.
No.
But there's 2 of them, and they just don't work with the rest of the neighborhood.
This is a public hearing, so.
Not so sure.
Yeah, well, you don't have to agree.
I'm not so sure. This-
I'm just stating my opinion.
Yeah, this is a continuation of the public hearing. If we didn't open it, I move that we open it.
We did.
We did. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Yeah,
I just want to note, just for the board, that the public hearing is technically on the site plan and subdivision. You are welcome to take public comment on architecture, but I just wanted to let you know the public hearing is technically for site plan and subdivision.
But site plan covers massing of buildings.
Well, not entire, like, that's more
Because there's height
ARB.
and setback.
Well, yeah, but they do
issues.
meet the height and setbacks of the,
There are lots of ways to meet that.
well, I'm just saying that, just letting you know.
okay.
So my name is Robert Barbera, 66 Luzerne Road. First off, a lot of confusion about, is this a public hearing or not a public hearing? I know a lot more neighbors wanted to come, but there seemed to be confusion. And last time there was supposed to be a public hearing, the last 2 meetings, and it wasn't because of the subdivision plan. So a lot of neighbors, I think they might have sent emails trying to figure out if clearly this was going to happen. So I know a lot more neighbors wanted to come, but confusion. I'm not sure how long the public hearing lasts. It's not a continuation, I guess, of the planning board public meeting, because that hasn't happened yet. The last time we were told There wasn't any meeting in February on the topic, and in January, we were told that officially you couldn't open the public hearing on the planning board issues of the house. I think we had input around the architectural board side to make comments. So to me, this is the first time of a public hearing on the property, and I hope that you can continue that moving forward, because I know a lot of the other neighbors wanted to come.
Good. Thank you.
Regarding kind of the comments, and I think, the board has recognized some of those. We put in a list earlier on in the process of many neighbors that signed a petition expressing concern over the size of the houses and a similar appearance. So I know that's been discussed, and I appreciate the board, debating and continuing to call out this issue. It's important to us in the neighborhood, and I think you recognize from, the designs, the mass, that it's really not fitting in, and it has some concerns. I'm also kind of questioning what I saw today about the size of the square foot of the adjacent property. I mean, we picked a couple of the biggest houses and use that, but a lot of houses are 12 to 2,000 feet, square feet, probably average in neighborhoods about 1,800. And the house that's next to it that they mentioned was 2,500 by a tax map. I'm wondering if that includes the garage, because if you look at the size of these two houses, it's a lot more than 200 square feet bigger. I know initially they had the garages in the square foot, and then they removed them. I would assume that the other house wherever they pull the information includes the garage in the square feet. So I kind of question that. I also questioned in the past, told I couldn't ask them, I had to ask you, so I asked the last time. They presented pictures of houses in the neighborhood that had similar appearance. Those houses were not in the neighborhood, so this keeps on coming up about, there's a lot of houses that are very similar in appearance, not in this subdivision that we're, lucky to live in, that has a great historical character and history to it. The mapping of the property, and I'm not an architect or anyone involved with construction, but I think there's been, over the course of the last couple of months, a lot of inaccuracies in what was presented as far as the trees that were on the property or not on the property, not recorded on the initial diagrams, the retaining walls that were not, noted on the initial diagrams. There's a fence on that back of the property that's right on top of that retaining wall. So I know you mentioned about a, setback with a fence. I'm not sure what's going to happen when that fence comes down and that wall gets fixed, what's going to happen to the back of that property that leads to the other house. That's not clear in any of the diagrams that I've seen. The other concern I have, besides the houses, the mass, the appearance, is around the construction and the deconstruction of the current house. So, these are older homes with lead and asbestos and a lot of the building materials, roofing shingles, window caulking, basement insulation, pipe insulation. So I, once again, not involved with the process, but what is the sort of testing that's being done on the existing house to check for lead and asbestos, and what will be done to safely remove that when this house is torn down? There's a lot of young children in this neighborhood, and safety is a concern, and I'd like to understand how that is dealt with when the time comes that this house needs to be removed, and all the other proper construction safety measures need to be in place. I believe there's like a state law that if you're doing construction, you can't have runoff coming off of the property. Last week, when I drove down Lafergie, the construction that was happening on the house down there was lots of mud running off of that construction site onto Lafergie Road. I don't think that's part of the state guidelines. When there's construction, that runoff has to be dealt with, so it's not going into the gutters and into the street. We're also living with, up on our, Lyman, Luzerne, the constant bagging and drilling that's happening as they construct the house on Lafergie. So my other question and concern is, what has been done to analyze the ground that is underneath these properties? There's a lot of big, huge rock structures that are up there. You can see some of the houses on the maps are built around those houses. Some of them don't have basements because of that large rock mass. And I'm wondering what has been done to analyze the subterranean underneath the properties and what's going to be required to, put these homes in place. So that's, I guess, the kind of key points that I had, and, I've been writing different letters to the board through the system, through the process, and hope that you can address those concerns as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarkar Parlak, the resident of 3 Lyman Place, the White House, with my wife and my 2-year-old daughter. As you can see, I have the most vested in these conversations, as I'm going to be the most impacted resident when it comes to these relatively large, very tall structures that will be towering over my property. I've already sent a letter, so I just wanted to touch on a couple key points. The first is really around, facing the reality that 11 Lyman today is in a state of disrepair. Since I moved there about 5 years ago, no one's lived there. These homes need to be lived in. They're 100 years old. They slowly degrade. Soon it would be a dilapidated mess. So I do appreciate there's something being done with regards to that. But in the interest of getting something done, I just want to make sure we don't get a little ahead of our skis in some respects, right? If we take a step back and think about the macro context that we're in, we are in a competition for new home shoppers as far as Dobbs Ferry goes. We compete with other river towns. Home buyers come in, they see our good schools, they see our good infrastructure, and they want to invest and, make a living or make their lives in here. And when it comes to, driving that demand, the appeal of the neighborhood, how these places feel, of course, the square footage and the amenities provided are important. And as these homes are built the right way, our tax base expands. We collect more taxes, better services, better schools, and around the cycle goes, right? So I just want to kind of ask you the question of, okay, we addressed the issue with 11 Lyman, which is a home that needs repairs, and dropped 2 large shoe boxes in there. In which direction have we taken Dobbs Ferry? Has it become a more competitive town to live in, or has it kind of slipped back behind as far as Dales, Irvingtons, and all the other sort of villages that enjoy better property values than we do today? So, I want to sort of call this properties like this, or the developments like this, and I want to kind of call a spade a spade. And what I mean by this is, no disrespect, out-of-town developers come in, buy large lots with old homes, raise the homes, subdivide them, drive 2 prefabricated homes with maximum amount of square footage allowed so that they can turn a profit. I'm not against people turning a profit. You need to turn a profit so that old homes get taken care of, they're cycled, they're renewed, they're better for a much harsher future under the climate change, issues that we're all facing today. So, my ask is really, is there a different way? And there is, right here, 20 Lyman Place, where Ansgar and Petra have bought this older property with the help of the same architect, Christina. They built a beautiful home that doesn't take all the allotted space. It's not the biggest property that can be there, but it's modern, beautiful, and it didn't necessarily change the feel of the neighborhood itself. In many ways, it kind of elevated it. I do agree. 3 Lyman Place is now no Beverly Hills. Not all the homes are in great shape. They look great, but they all look different. So in many ways, echoing Mr. Lane's comment here, do these homes actually fit with the feel of the neighborhood itself? So, I just want to also call attention to what does this development take away from us, right? And I will kind of summarize it as such. New constructions degrade the appeal of our town as they cram all the house they can into the lots that they purchase and subdivide, right? They put lipsticks on pigs so that we don't call a shoebox a shoebox. They look a little different from the front, but the back, all other facades of these homes have been untouched. We haven't sort of seen a single square footage of change in actually these homes besides the exclusion of the garages. So as Robert Lane also mentioned, they are the same home. They look a little different from the front, but is that the purpose of this kind of forum? Is that what we're trying to kind of resolve? So prefabricated homes get dropped in. They steal from the sort of look of the neighborhood because they're no longer as unique, but they're priced because of the unique homes around them as those kind of set the comps. And, developers flip them, they sell, they move on to the next big lot that they're going to subdivide and build on. So I just wanted to kind of call, you see this all the time. This is probably not the first time this has been done in this town or many of the surrounding towns, but I just wanted to kind of call attention to something, you know, if we kind of follow this path, where does that leave us in 20, 30, 40 years' time? What does Dobbs Ferry look like? I, no disrespect in New Jersey, chose to live here because I didn't like the architectural beauty of New Jersey, which is a lot of homes right up to their limits, you know, 10 feet between two homes. You kind of see your neighbor through your kitchen window. So those are my just kind of more, you know, higher level comments as to which direction do developments like these take us. The other issues I wanted to call attention to, that we've kind of done this many times, but the biggest concern I have at this moment is asbestos abatement. I have a 2-year-old daughter that lives right there in that white building, and I just want to make sure whatever is in there that needs to be taken care of gets taken care of accordingly. And I don't necessarily see any indication, and I don't even know if it even be there, on how this would be handled. Same with lead paint. Similarity in appearance and adherence to the code. You know, we've kind of labored this point many a time, so I won't bother you with it anymore. The size of the structure, so I do agree. Yes, 19 Lyman is perhaps a little bigger, but maybe includes garage in there. The home behind there is maybe 3,000 feet, but every other home is 700 square feet or so. So these homes would be 70% larger than every other home that's around them. You know, there is no privacy hedge. I mean, there is a forsythia that runs the eastern border between my home and that home. And from my kitchen, I see, you know, I see the 5-foot elevation, because these homes are at the apex of the hill. And I see, you know, into the side of the building. And my bathroom would look into the roof of the current structure, but would now look into the second story of that building, on top of which there would be a new roof that we hire. So I would like, you know, to the extent it's something that can be figured out, some more privacy that would just separate my property from that property that's going to now tower over and look into my yard. Drainage, so if there are rocks under the bases of these homes with 1,500 square foot of, you know, aerial coverage that they have, where's that water going to go? I don't even know if there's drainage sort of holes on the southern end of Lyman Place. So I just have concerns, given that I've already had some flooding issues with the rains that we've had, that these would be exacerbated. And, you know, retainer walls, we've kind of talked about them. I'm almost surprised that there was no awareness that there was retainer walls on 3 sides of this property until the previous time we were here taking public comments. And then the 2 trees on the eastern border that, as you can see here, this towers over my roof, and I know they will be cut down, but I would rather see something done about that before, you know, the plan is approved and then the construction kind of begins. So anyways, thank you for your time. Thanks for listening to our concerns, and thanks for your engagement.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
comments.
Good evening. I'm Susan Smith Santini. I live at 104 Brandy Road, about 3 streets over from Lyman. I wrote to this group a couple of days ago, and I hope hopefully you have my letter. I want to say this: there was very little that was good about COVID, but what was good for me was I walked around my neighborhood in ways that I never had before, and walking up Luzerne and Lyman and around became one of the regular walks. You're right, some of the houses there are lovely, some are a little sketchy. It's an interesting street, but I think it's a gem. I think it's unique. I think it has character, and I'd even go so far as to say sweet. So I'm familiar with Lyman. I think I would suggest it would be interesting to have a street view, not coming from this end, but coming from this end, because where 3 Lyman is, that's down. It's down a bit, and there is a rise. So I think that, to me, that view is a little, well, it presents one view, but I think there's another view would be very important to take into consideration. I do think an issue has been raised tonight that was, you know, stuck in my craw is that these just feel cookie cutter. I'm sorry, they're cookie cutter. They don't, to me, they don't fit with this neighborhood. They're not in keeping with the neighborhood. And so I would just, really like to request that, go back to the drawing board, come back with something that is going to fit with this neighborhood, with its, glorious variety, I guess I'd say, so that it feels like these homes are in character with this neighborhood. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. What'd she say?
One
There's-
person's online.
Okay.
Are you able to get them on?
Here we go.
Oh, okay.
Sort of.
Hi there. Is it my turn?
Yes.
It is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi.
Thank you for taking my comment virtually. It's great to be able to do this via Zoom as well. But I just want to reiterate what Bob said. This has been very confusing. In the previous meetings, it was said that this hasn't progressed to a public hearing yet. I think that needs to be clear in the communication. I just have a question, or want to make a comment about the short environmental assessment form. It seems like that's just a paper exercise, but some of the questions on that form, I think need to be more seriously considered. Number 2 is, will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land? And it seems to me that, at the moment there's one house and there are going to be 2 houses. So, obviously, that's a big change. Question number 3 is, will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? And I think we've heard a lot that it does have an impact on the community. And, just a reminder about the vision plan. The vision plan states clearly that it's important to maintain the character of the neighborhood. And finally, I just want to bring up question number 6. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? I said that in January, there are obviously opportunities to do more with renewable energy. All these questions have been, just checked as no. So it seems to me that they do have an impact on this. Thank you for taking my comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? If not,
No, just good evening, board, members of the board. David Balat here representing the ownership group. Just want to make sure we've heard all the public comments. If you can, again, ask if anyone has any more comments from the public this
I think
way.
we're going to leave the public hearing open,
yeah, we will.
right?
Well,
At least next week.
I'll go through my concerns at this point. So just want to make sure we've heard everyone who's here tonight.
Yeah.
And again, with the multiple ways that we can appear via Zoom, present, and so forth. So let's talk about the main comment that's been brought up several times. This is meeting number 4. Let's first understand exactly what the function of the planning board is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong with all due respect. We're here to evaluate the site plan and the subdivision, and if there's a problem with that, we will absolutely address any issues with that. So I'd like the board to put on the record as to what we're evaluating and what decision needs to be made with respect to our application. Because what I'm hearing this evening and what I've heard over the past several meetings is quite a bit of subjective opinions as to what is being developed here. So I'll continue, but if the board wants to respond to what we actually have to review in the application to make sure that we're focused on what the function of the planning board is for us in an application that is as of right, and we are not requesting any variances, and we'd like to better understand, I'd like to better understand and make sure that we've covered everything we need to.
Well, our role is also the Architectural and Historic Review Board.
Agreed.
Okay, and we have a separate resolution that's associated with that. However, part of that purview is to make sure things are not excessively similar or excessively dissimilar.
Understood.
Okay, and so we can deny applications based on those criteria. And that appears to be the primary concern that keeps coming up from the board members.
Right. So I'd like to spend a little bit more time on exactly that comment. Mr. Lane, I understand your concern, and you've voiced it several times, and I understand that's the perspective and the view that you have. With all due respect, I respectfully disagree and wholeheartedly disagree. I also disagree with the fact that the residents of the area, as well as people within the block, one or two block radius and outside that were out-of-town developers. We may not reside in Dobbs Ferry, but I reside in Eastchester, and I've resided in Scarsdale, and I've resided in Pleasantville, and I've resided in Chappaqua, and I've resided in North Castle and another area in Newcastle. I'm very familiar with Westchester County, which this Dobbs Ferry is in Westchester County. I take pride in the developments we do because I'm a homeowner myself. And in order for us to be successful, we need to address the residents, the people around us, the end user, and these people who are prospectively want to appeal to build these houses for. This is I personally, now on a subjective level, personally look at development as not the profiteering fiasco that sort of was described. We're here to develop product that we can put our names on, that people that believe that we build something good, something for the community, something for someone who's going to have a family and build their lives here. That's my personal focus, and I believe my team has the same view. With that said,
Yeah, just to clarify, the comment about you being an out-of-town, that didn't come from us.
no, I'm just, I'm putting it on the
I just want to
record.
be clear.
Right.
None of us, I don't really care where you're from, so none of us said anything.
But I'm addressing
about
the
that.
comment that came up this evening.
Well, that's not, we heard a lot of comments tonight, some of which have nothing to do with the planning board. We understand how to parse that.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, for noting that. So, again, let's focus on the dissimilarities or the similarities of these two homes, that they're just cookie cutter homes. And if I may approach the screen, I'm looking at our proposed design here of this hip roof. I'm looking at 1, 2, I'm looking at 3, I'm looking at 4, I'm looking at possibly 5, within a 1 to 2 block radius that all fit in the same context of the way this roof line is. Can we all agree that's true or not true?
That's true, but it's not the issue.
We didn't-
The issue is the two houses, compare the two houses to each other.
Quite frankly, Mr. Lane, there is no issue because we're in compliance. We've met the planning board and the zoning code. So what's the issue? The issue is subjective.
No, there are lots of ways, well, as was pointed out, the AHRB
We've spent a lot of time.
the AHRB is, you know, we have guidelines, we have residential guidelines, we have the standard that's been put out there. At some point, there is a discretionary range of judgment that we have to make. If that wasn't the case, we could just all go home. You could go to Dan. Dan could go through I mean, it'd be great, as far as I'm concerned. I'm hungry. So Dan could just review it, and he'd say, it's as of right, and we're done. That's not what this is, right? There is a discretionary area, and we are within bounds, as far as we're concerned, of that discretion.
completely understood and agreed. That's why we've taken much effort into come up with something that works. Now, I understand it still may not work for you, as one of the members of the board. I
That's
understand and I
just
can
me,
appreciate that,
right?
again. But again, I'm just trying to focus on our perspective as to say, I think we've accomplished to make these fit within the characters of the other homes in the neighborhood and made the two homes not look alike. Because when you go on the second gable roof, then you have 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think we've accomplished making the two homes fit within the neighborhood, within reason. Again, they're new homes. And the fact that the two homes that we want to build here don't really look alike. They're different homes.
Yeah, but I also don't think there's any other homes that identically match up the way that those two, which is, I think, what Rob is trying to say.
Fair
Yeah.
enough, but let's point that out.
They read as
They
a
read
pair.
as, yeah.
Regardless of whether you change the roof or not, their impact is two guys standing shoulder to shoulder. It's not,
On a
right,
hill.
it's right, it's not, it's not like,
But how's that any different for these homes that are all standing shoulder to shoulder?
because they're different enough.
And
They're sort of different enough, they have different setbacks, their relationship to the sidewalk is different.
They're not
Their
the
relationship to
same
the street is
shape.
different.
But again, the facade planes on the two homes are clearly different.
That's not the way you experience the houses, right? The way you experience the houses is walking around the neighborhood, as this woman pointed out. You don't stand there, you're never in a position where you're standing there and looking at the two facades the way they're rendered in an elevation.
You're going to be looking at them the same way you're looking at the rest of the houses in the block.
Obliquely, as you walk by.
Yeah, I mean,
And your sense of the street is created as you walk down the street and you see the buildings in relationship to each other. You don't stand there, and you can't stand there because you can't see the facades on the street the way you draw them.
It's as, I'm pointing out, you're going to view the facades as you drive by or walk by the homes.
Right, so you're not gonna see them, the fact that you can draw two elevations and sort of do enough kind of moving around the pieces to have the two front elevations look different, doesn't change the overall impression of these two volumes on the street and on the neighborhood.
I just don't see it.
Yeah,
So we
yeah, okay.
respectfully disagree to
Yeah.
disagree.
That's okay.
So, and that's the main comment that I've been hearing over several times. Another comment is that came up from the last meeting and this meeting, the retaining walls. These are pre-existing retaining walls. We, under the building code, we would absolutely have to address any issues or effects that, or again, there's no plan to touch to do anything with the retaining walls to the extent that they need to be changed, moved, or otherwise. However, of course, in our typical process, we would evaluate those walls and address them as needed. So,
As I said, there are a bunch of things that were raised tonight that are typically handled by our engineer and by our building department. We heard about asbestos abatement, we heard about site drainage, we heard about retaining walls.
right.
I don't have to worry about any of that because there are people who are smarter than me who are gonna worry about that.
Thank you.
That's not the issue. So you don't have to spend a lot of time, as far as I'm concerned, talking about the retaining walls and the drainage. My guess is you'll figure that out and do whatever Dan and our engineer requires you to do.
Yes, and I just wanted to bring it up that they shouldn't, the residents shouldn't be concerned because they will be addressed based on building code rules and
Yeah, I
regulations.
think that's right.
And again, it's the same concept with, just as you mentioned. So I appreciate you noting that and allowing that the building department will handle that accordingly with the construction. But again, the main goal here, and for us, obviously, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we would greatly appreciate the ability to really go to a vote, but again, we would want to vote, obviously, because this is our fourth meeting, and we think we haven't heard any new comments, And if we have, please correct me. I don't believe we had heard any new comments. We'd be happy to talk about those or address those if to the extent that they're new. And how can we proceed in a way that we can either draft some language that permits us to address these on the ongoing post-approval or post-voting, where you can make them part of the resolution and we can address those accordingly.
So just for the boards, if a vote were to take place tonight, I believe you would need all four, right? Because you have a quorum of four, and you would need all four to approve a resolution. Three? Yeah, so you need 3 out of the 4 to approve the resolution.
The resolution for,
It could be, well, whatever you decide to put up for a vote, but I'm just letting you know you don't have a full board.
But we've already, I think, committed to leaving the public hearing open.
Right.
is there any way, since 4 meetings, we keep hearing the same thing, you know, that they're exactly the same shape, they're side by side, kind of, even though the front facade is different, and that's great, it's come a long way. Is there any way that the rear of the buildings could be somewhat modeled so that they're not exactly the same footprint? Just asking, because it seems like we keep hearing, you know, it's the same exact footprint side by side, and it doesn't really fit in with the character of the neighborhood. Is there any chance that that could be modified slightly so that it would be a little bit more in character with the rest of the site plan of the neighborhood? I think that, it sounds to me like that is maybe the issue.
Yeah, I think so.
You know? So I'm, you know, if we keep presenting the same thing and we keep saying the same thing, there's not no resolution, you know? So I'm just wondering if we can kind of give and take a little bit to massage the buildings to make it a little bit more in character with each home feeling a little bit on its own rather than side by side. And I think for me, and I've been up here lots of times now because I walk in the During Estate every morning, and I have driven by here and I've walked by here, and for me, I think it's more the slope of the property, you know, so it sits very high. So I feel like, you know, if it was on the flatter plane or a lower plane, it probably wouldn't be as prominent of an issue of these buildings. But because it's on a higher peak and because we're used to seeing one house and now we're going to have 2 houses, there's a whole different feel for me. So I'm wondering, like, I appreciate all the work that's gone into it from the first presentation. I'm just wondering if there could be something a little bit more massage there. And I know it's frustrating, but it's a design process. And that's kind of what happens in a process. And hopefully at the end, it'll be a satisfactory presentation for everybody.
If I may, Christina, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
The rear of one of the houses, I believe it's the house on the left, where there's some, we had discussed it prior that there was some ability to look at the back of the house in a different way. Can we pull
Yes,
that up?
yes. I have a lot, actually, I'm listening and taking this all in because, you know, we started with identical plans and we have changed the front facades and we, you know, to get more variety, one thing is to change the back of the buildings, yes. And you know, we have these porches, each one has a porch, but one could have a porch, one just a deck. Is that what you were thinking of, Dave?
I was thinking about that, correct?
Yeah. I mean, we can definitely look into some options to vary the facades so that they're not so similar other than the front facades. You know, they are only, I mean, I want you to know I did not include the garages, and I really looked carefully at the property cards to look at the square footage of the neighboring homes. And we don't include the garage in the area for these houses, and I haven't included it in the other houses. But, you know, it is not that large a home, but, I mean, we can look at a few options that we can just massage it so that they're different, there's more variation between them. I don't want to really throw out ideas right now. I think we need to get together with our team and look at these ideas.
Okay.
I think that there have to be real massing changes to the two volumes. I guess I don't understand why, so what part of this is prefabricated, or we keep calling it a quote-unquote kit, which may not be right. I don't know. Like, what actually is, what are you buying?
I think I think it's a misunderstanding why we're calling these kits. Even though they're being fabricated, if you will, in the context of a typical, you know, modular process, that's not the way it works, at least today. Modular has come in a way where you practically stick build a home within four walls of a factory and within a couple of and you put the, you know, you piece it together. It's really, the process is no different. It's just a more controlled fashion. And because these are, again, you only have the ability to build what you can within the footprint of the zoning. You're basically in line with a typical structure of a rectangle shape. Again, I'm using it very generically, which just fits the profile of a modular build versus an uncontrolled stick build out in the elements and out in the open. So it's not, because again, modular construction today has come a long way where you can basically custom build a home in the factory and have it built in many different, you know, again, in multiple different ways. So I think it's a misnomer to call it a kit, because the kit in reality was probably, you know, 4 or 5 crates, and they built it together and put it together on site, versus here you're actually stick building the framing and the boxes and so forth. So I'm not so sure that really makes a difference, because it's going to be built the same way, whether it was stick built in the field or built in the controlled manner of four walls in a factory. But may I ask or request the board to indicate, are we going to make a vote, or are we going to continue the public hearing to the next meeting?
We can discuss it.
Well, we're committed, I think, to having the public hearing, right? We wouldn't vote before
I would think that in light of the questions that were raised, because of the last time we met, and the comments that have been made as well on that, I think we ought to continue the public hearing until, what was that, the April meeting.
Yeah.
I think it would be prudent to do that.
I was thinking, yeah.
I would also like to explain a little bit about the modular or the prefabrication process. These plans are generated by the prefab company. And we're working as a team here, where I am working on the design of the facades, but the layout and the plans have been developed by that company. So we need to, you know, work together more to see how we can, you know, make some changes to these plans. But we, you know, there is an advantage to having a similar plan to the houses. But there, you know, it is almost like this is a layout that I use to work on the facades. And that has been, so we're kind of working as a team.
Right, but I think, because you know, Christina, you're before us a lot with different projects. Sometimes we fight around things. Sometimes you make changes, including the project that you were just here before us, and it works, right? So I feel like the prefabrication part of this is, if I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt now, is constraining you in terms of the floor plans. And I have a feeling that the kind of massing changes that would really be necessary to make these two feel like they're two kind of idiosyncratic and different buildings, it's going to require some plan changes. So I don't, you know, I don't know how far the company that is doing the prefabrication is willing to go, but that, I feel like that, I agree that calling it a kit may be wrong, but it seems like it really is the case that the process that you've chosen to build these by is creating this constraint of not being able to make the massing of these two buildings animated enough to look like that they're different from each other and that they belong in the neighborhood.
Good point.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, are the economics so driven by the need to do it as a prefabricated thing as opposed to doing it the way a regular stick-built house would be done?
That's an economic question. I have to analyze it specifically. But again, this is what we started with, and this is what we pursued. But again, just so I'm crystal clear as to my response, or the board's response to my request of whether or not we have a vote this evening or continue the public hearing. And the concern that we're focusing on is, again, the same concern that's been raised over the several meetings. And that's the context of the houses being too similar and amongst each other. So again, if we continue the public hearing,
Correct.
then we attempt to make a change that works. Because at some point, we're going to have to say, where do we, you know, what does the board consider as to, and I'd just like to understand that, you know. Like I said, we can take a look at the rear of the house. I think we've addressed the front of the house. But we would be, just for the record, we'd be looking for a vote for the next meeting.
Yeah, well,
I guess it depends, the outcome of that vote will depend on, like, what changes we're able to make between now and then, at least speaking for myself. Not everyone.
no, I agree. I think it may sound silly, but I think making them look different is important.
No, it's not silly by any stretch, but I think, I believed we had accomplished that, but if, okay, so we'll certainly look at that.
Okay.
And the meeting is April 4th.
Yeah.
Yes.
April 4th is the next meeting.
April 4th and the next meeting.
Second,
Okay.
Okay,
Now-
thank you.
first.
Now, some of our fellow villagers have brought up issues that, how do we get them addressed? I mean, I can speak to them for a minute based on my knowledge, but,
I think,
I don't think we should move on.
right, the issues that they raised in terms of engineering stuff, so, both Anthony and I are done with our reviews.
okay.
So, Anthony feels that everything has been addressed on site, and so everything else can be dealt with during the building permit process. And then the rest of the couple other items that were raised dealing with the asbestos and stuff like that, that's all dealing with the building permit process, and that doesn't get dealt with at the planning board process.
No, I understand, but they should understand that
Right.
there's New York State, there's federal code
Right.
about handling all those hazardous materials. It's our building department's job to make sure those are followed. And, you know, there's a system in place to make sure that you as neighbors will not be impacted by that. You also brought up drainage issues and those sort of things. If our village engineer went through and approved the stormwater management plan, it should be much better than it is now. And they have to capture all that water from a 100-year event on site and store it. And they've already had to test whether it'll perk down to the ground. They can't just put storage systems on top of solid rock and assume that's going to happen. So now that doesn't address whether you're going to have to chip rock to put in some part of the building. That's another story. But at least the stormwater management plan should be in place.
Are those engineering memos available to the public? Are they-
Yeah, they've all been posted on
Okay,
the
so,
website.
so In terms of those issues that have been raised that are sort of technical issues, then the public can go and look and see, read Anthony's.
Yes.
Okay, and another thing on my list that was brought up was energy usage. Are these going to be purely heat pump
Yes.
systems? So there's no natural gas coming in the buildings?
Christina, I'm not sure. to me.
We haven't talked about it, but most of the projects we do are all electric now and using heat pumps and I can get back to you on that.
Great,
I'm taking notes here.
great. And then also, where do those condensers go? And how are they shielded?
We'll locate them on the plans next go around.
Okay. And the last item on my list was the landscape plan, and I know you've got it there, and I haven't looked at it in super detail, which is my bad. But, you know, the existing screening appears to be insufficient. So I'd just like maybe somebody could talk us through again one more time that landscape plan and how we're going to improve that.
Will, tonight or next meeting?
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay.
Next meeting.
Okay.
Will do, absolutely.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna, take a
Thank
vote
you.
to adjourn to
Appreciate your time.
April 4th.
April 4th, yeah.
I'm sorry?
You want a motion and a second to adjourn the public hearing till August, I'm sorry, till April 4th.
April 4th.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I so move.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, 2 Castle Hill Close and 4 Castle Hill Close. This one's got to be simpler.
We hope so. I'm Smitha Abraham here with my husband, Anil Abraham. We're the owners of 4 Castle Hill Close. My neighbor Annie and Benj, congratulations to them. They just had a baby, so they are not present, but available by phone if you need them. We had submitted a proposal for a redraw of our property line between our 2 homes to make it straight. So we started out in December, then we came back last time with the proposal, and were asked to provide a subdivision plat, which we went to our engineers and got done. We did submit the plat a couple times, I think to some members of the board who looked at it and asked for various updates. I believe the most updated plat is in your hands, and hopefully it is sufficient for moving forward.
The plat is sufficient, and it is ready for public hearing tonight, so,
Yeah.
And we called for a public hearing.
yes, you did.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Good.
This would be a continuation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have to open it.
Yeah. Yeah. Will we open the public hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So it has the room for signatures, so how does that work now? Do we get your signatures first, and then I take it around to get everybody else's?
So I think they need.
Yeah, the only thing the engineer would like added to the final plat
Okay.
is the sewer and water for both houses, just to make sure it don't cross in over the property line anywhere. That wasn't added to the plat.
So I think when I spoke to the engineer, the surveyor, he said he put everything in for our home because our home is, if you're facing our home, on the right-hand side of the house is the sewer and the water, whereas for their home, it's on the other side. And so he put the little utility things, he told me.
That's fine. The engineer would just want to see it on the final plat. They could vote on it as long as it doesn't cross over
Just,
the property
right
line.
I have the right thing. So for
Now-
2 Castle Hill, you want,
The last time we looked at this or discussed this, there were some questions of whether easements were required to maintaining some of the systems.
They have the easement on the plat now.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's been taken care of.
yes.
Thank you.
okay, so you just want the sewer and the water for 2 Castle Hill Close updated on the final plat?
Correct. Any of the utilities, you just did them on the one house. He wants to make sure that none of them cross over the property line and need an agreement.
Okay,
Or an
okay. I
easement.
think the surveyor said that they were on the other side, so thought that they wouldn't have to put
Then
a
that
line.
shouldn't be a problem.
This is a continuation of a public hearing. So I'll move that we open the public hearing.
We did.
We did? Good.
Would anybody like to speak to this?
Maybe I would move that we close the public.
No.
Anybody online? No? Now we can close.
Okay.
I just have one more question. So
Sure.
I get the updated plat with that information and then bring it to you for signatures?
After they, approve it.
Yeah, but they have to do a final subdivision approval, right? So this is the preliminary one. They have to come back for final subdivision.
But we can waive the public hearing for that.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm basically, I'm going to.
Any questions on process, you should probably call the building department as opposed to,
Right here. Gotcha.
Thank
it
you.
would be easier for you that way.
Okay, but I think sounds like we're good to go otherwise. Thank
Yeah,
you.
we just have to vote. They have to
Oh.
vote.
Well, do we close, we have to close the public
Yeah.
hearing, right?
Yeah. I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're voting on the preliminary?
Yes.
plat?
Yeah. So I have a resolution. So whereas the applicants are seeking preliminary subdivision approval to move lot lines for more appropriately shaped properties. Properties are located at 2 and 4 Castle Hill Close. Whereas the board conducted a duly noticed public hearing on January 4th, 2024, and it was concluded on January 7th, 2024, during which time all those wishing to be heard were given the opportunity to be heard and provide written comments. So therefore, be it resolved, the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry determines that based upon the findings and reasoning set forth below, the application for preliminary plat approval is granted, subject to the following. So it refers to the subdivision map, February 14th, 2024, and the following conditions must be met. And specifically, one of the conditions will be the applicant must address to the full satisfaction of the village engineer all outstanding stormwater maintenance agreements, and engineering issues raised in the hearings and documents submitted. The village engineer must sign off the final engineering plans, including all utilities on both properties. That's it. Oh, so you can vote.
So that's a motion.
Yes.
All
All
right,
in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, second.
Steve,
Good now?
Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
can you second it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda, the police pre-submission conference for planning board and AHRB agenda, 327 Ashford Avenue. That application has been adjourned until the April meeting. 125 Bel Air Drive.
So this application.
Let me read this.
So this application went before the village board.
Right.
The village board was fine with working on a license agreement. So at this point, depending upon the village board's planning board's comfort level, this could potentially go to public hearing next month.
Okay.
Is there anything new to be presented?
Well, no, but,
Okay.
I mean, shall I, the big issue here, of course, is, as you recall, the fact that we have to remove, and I can remove, a number of these invasive Norway maple trees. And what happened here?
I thought the real issue is whether or not you could do the work in the village right away, which we don't have any say
Oh,
on.
well, I guess I thought
That-
the BOT seemed, like they were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All
Fine
right,
with
didn't you
that
just say
and
that
so
that's been
forth.
worked out with the
Yeah.
Board of
Yeah.
Trustees?
right, so that's done.
Right.
And then the tree thing is not up to us, right?
We don't have control over that.
Yeah, but I keep getting,
No, there's no, we don't have authority over that.
Well, that's.
I've read your comments and whatnot. I'm sorry.
Well, let me just talk about it a little bit, because to my understanding is your partner, the lawyer, what's her name? She said that there's some, legislation before the BOTs that the planning board is been asked to opine on.
Yeah, that's at the end of the agenda tonight.
Sorry?
That's at the end of the
Oh, it is?
agenda.
Okay. Well.
And
okay.
the
Well, that's
proposal is
sort
to
of
be more,
pertinent.
the proposal is to be more
You can
stringent.
opine on it.
The proposal will be more stringent, so.
Well, right, but why, given under the circumstances?
That's
I mean,
up
this
to
is
the
a pretty-
trustees. That's the Board of Trustees.
Again, if you're asked to opine on this,
Right, so that's an agenda item at the end of the meeting for them to review the zoning for recommendation.
right, and again, I think this is very pertinent for them to understand how this applies to a property like this, because this, oh, geez, I'm not sharing here.
So, but I mean, the board, if you want to listen to, you want to get their thoughts on it, I would suggest maybe having it under the appropriate, at the end of the meeting. No.
No, I understand, but it is pertinent, this specific project is pertinent to what you are opining on. So I want to go through the issues here on this project, and it happens to be pertinent to that. How do I share? I'm sorry.
But I don't think we can do anything about it.
Right, no, the recommendation that's to the planning board in terms of the trees deals with proposed tree preservation changes that the village board is proposing. And so that's what this planning
So they
board
can
will be
look at-
opining on.
Really?
I don't know, he's got it up. Why don't we give him
Okay.
60
well,
seconds?
This is the issue, and I think it's important for everyone in the village and the planning board to understand, this is the existing property, and it is filled with Norway maples. And we want to remove a fairly significant number of them, leaving trees that will be in excess probably of, certainly, of the average property in Dobbs Ferry. The fee for this, for the removal of the trees, would be $40,000 for removing invasive Norway maples. And I think your opinion is important to the BOT. And my impression, as last time we were here, is that you all thought the BOT could waive that, and they said, oh, no, we can't, which doesn't make sense to me. But because it's an onerous fee to tell a property owner that they have to pay this tremendous fee to remove invasive trees from their property just isn't right, in my opinion. And I think as a planning board, you do have some way to opine on that type of legislation and maybe change it.
All right, so I think your position's clear on that. I'm sympathetic to that position
Yeah.
personally, but it's not, in the end, all we do is can make a recommendation, but we
Right.
hear what you're saying.
Right, and again, this is now, I'm sorry, should I go through this isn't a public here, should I?
No,
go
no, no,
through it again, or
Pre-submission.
What do we want to do here? I'm happy to, anyway, this is the property in question, existing house, we renovated as phase 1 of the project.
I don't think you have to go through it again. I think
Okay, don't-
you've resolved the issue. Our primary concern was resolving the issue with the Board of Trustees in the right of,
Right.
for your infrastructure in the right of way.
Okay, and the impression is that
And,
they are.
and so I don't think that's
supportive of
gonna, I'm gonna
Okay.
speak for the rest of the board to say that that's not an impediment anymore. I personally don't see anything in this project other than the trees that are an issue at this point,
Right.
so.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's some comments I got from the
Do
engineer.
you
that
have
were
concerns?
No.
No.
Pretty straightforward. There were some
Okay, so you're,
things that were misconstrued, I think, but I,
that's as far as you can
the
go.
response, the engineer. Yeah, so,
Does the board want to call for a public hearing in April on this matter?
Sure.
Sure,
you wouldn't open it now?
yeah.
It has to be noticed.
Oh,
I mean, unless you want to waive public hearing, that's up to you. But
We have neighbor concerns.
We do. Okay, so no, we need to call a public hearing.
Okay, all right. I move we call for a public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Okay,
And there should be a resolution, which will be ready.
The trees in the villages right away will go to the tree commission, though, for them to look at that.
Okay.
And that's not, it'll go to the tree commission. For the ones in the right-of-way.
And can I ask a question, just since you're speaking about that? Would that still fall potentially within this, fee per square inch or per diameter or
That
whatever?
would be up to the tree
It's
commission.
up,
I
but they
can't
have
a-
some.
They have a
authority to
little
waive
bit,
that.
yes, they do,
Okay.
with the ones in the right-of-way.
Okay, that's interesting to know.
Okay.
And what are the neighbor concerns?
I don't know, but some,
A few people came in about the size of the retaining walls
Okay.
and the
Alright.
tree removal.
and the tree removal. So,
Okay, so we'll address that at the public hearing.
Okay.
Good.
But if there's some comments that can be sent to us, that were sent to you?
No, they wanted to come to the
Oh,
public
just to say,
hearing.
they didn't write any submittals? Okay, right.
Okay.
Did you vote on the public hearing? Did they vote?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Who was second?
Steve?
Thank you, Noam.
Okay.
All right. Next item on our agenda, 515 Broadway, Greenberg Hebrew Center, pre-submission conference for proposed exterior renovations. Bob?
Can I just clarify, I'm the homeowner of 125 Letter Sushi. Would like to see some kind of exemption or change in the code or whatever is necessary to waive the $40,000. Should we stay until this number 5 agenda item? I don't know the process at all. I mean, common sense dictates we should be exempt, I just don't know the process to make it happen. Well, we don't have the right, the power, the purview to be able to give you that exemption, okay? But we are going to, we are being asked to give our recommendations in regards to the new code. Okay, so, but the Board of Trustees is the ones that vote for, on that code.
That's clear, but it's your word.
There are a lot of people in this town that have strong opinions about trees.
And the new code will be more stringent if it is passed.
So you could certainly stick around and hear the discussion, but it won't be about your application per se.
No.
And it's up to the trustees to take the recommendations and act, so.
So do we stay and argue in favor of pool exempting this type of situation in general? And if, someone have the right code to exempt this kind of situation, I don't know it.
Well, I think the board heard what you were saying, but it's not a give and take. At that point, that's not a public hearing. It's a discussion among the board members as to how they want to proceed with advice or recommendations to the village.
Ultimately, there will be a public hearing on whatever the village board decides to move forward with tree preservation, and at that point in time, you could raise those issues.
That's at the trustee level.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not us.
So what would you advise I
Go to the Board of Trustees.
end goal is just to not pay $40,000. What should I do? I mean, I'm happy to come and change the code and come to the meeting.
I would talk to the village administrator, contact the village administrator.
Who is?
Rob Umuter. Rob Umuter.
You can find him on the village website, his telephone number and everything.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Rosenberg, and I'm the president of the Greenberg Hebrew Center in Dobbs Ferry. My husband, Bruce Siegel, and I are both active members of the Greenberg Hebrew Center and residents of Dobbs Ferry for 29 years now, since 1995. Both communities are very important to us. GHC has been a member of this community for over 76 years. Rabbi Jay Stein is currently the Dobbs Ferry Police Chaplain. We have excellent relationships with our neighbors, and we're very involved in interfaith work and activities. Most recently, we held a blood drive at the synagogue that attracted many people from the community. We're also an active participant of Midnight Run, also a Dobbs Ferry organization. GHC underwent major construction in 1990, and since then, we've made mostly minor repairs to our building and property. We have evaluated our needs and have prioritized the exterior of the building for renovation. The two projects that we feel are the most important for the community are the pedestrian sidewalk to the south of our building and the playground. The first improvement is adding a pedestrian sidewalk alongside our existing entrance drive. Currently, pedestrians share the long driveway with cars. We want to separate pedestrians from car traffic for enhanced safety. We feel that this will also encourage our congregants to use the rear parking lot more frequently and will lessen the demand for parking on the surrounding neighborhood streets. Our second improvement is a larger and better playground. Our early childhood center, which is licensed for full-day childcare, is open to Jews and to non-Jews alike in the community. We need new equipment with the proper safety clearances and a playground surface that meets safety standards. In short, we want to create a playground for very young children that meets current needs and school standards and parent expectations. Thank you. I will now turn it over to Jim from Cronin Engineering, who will go through the technical aspects of these projects.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Jim Anacarico with Cronin Engineering. So we've prepared a site plan for the Hebrew Center to basically update their parking situation in the back. They have large existing asphalt parking area. Currently, really no striping or markings for parking spaces. So we've laid out, tried to maximize, obviously, the number of parking spaces we can get in that area. We've, as Robin mentioned, we've also shown a sidewalk that connects the rear of the building to the front of the building on the south side of the building. That's going to require a slight relocation of the driveway. It's a one-way in driveway on the south side and one way out on the north side. But that will require a slight relocation of a portion of the driveway towards the south property line, just so we can fit that 4-foot sidewalk, ADA compliant sidewalk, into the site there. Also, as part of the project, the playground renovation. We've enlarged it slightly, going towards the west. It's right now it's basically just a wood chip area. There's a shed on it that will be removed. As part of the playground renovation, we also need to create a retaining wall. It will all be fenced in. I think it currently is right now, but it'll be fenced in for safety of the children that use it.
And where is that located on the site?
That's right off the.
You can see, well, you're still showing the existing.
Yeah, we're showing
Show the proposed. Do you
got it.
have it? The proposed plan? Is it the next sheet? Because that shows it.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Wait, go, yeah.
Right there.
There you are.
So right off the northwest corner of the building, that shaded area, that's the playground area. Small retaining walls along the west and north portion of the north side of the playground area. Retaining walls vary in height from basically a half a foot to 4 foot at the most. That'll have a fence on top of it and a perimeter fence around the entire area. Received the comment memos from the village consulting engineer and the planner. Gone through them. I don't really see any issues with any of the comments, or I don't see any issues addressing any of their comments. In fact, today I sat down and looked at the plan closer. We had some undersized parking spaces, 16-foot length of the parking spaces. I basically redid it all. Same basic layout, but I fixed those spaces to be 18. We still have one spot where the aisle is only 22 feet, but it is only one spot, which 24 feet is required for the code. But I've addressed all the other areas that were brought up. Impervious, we're actually reducing the impervious area by 271 square feet. And that's, the way we're doing that basically is, I know there was a question by Valerie as to how we were doing that. And we're removing some of the existing asphalt for the playground to make the playground slightly larger. And the playground surface is pervious. It's a rubberized material, but it is pervious.
And that's more than the new sidewalk?
Yes, the new sidewalk is 716 square feet, and the reduction of the asphalt for the playground is 987. So we've got a net reduction of 271, and actually that didn't even include the removal of the shed, which was another 73 feet, so it's about 344 square feet of impervious reduction. We've got 2 trees on site that we need to remove. One is in the playground area, a rather large tree. We wish you didn't have to take it down, but it's kind of leaning towards the west side of the playground. And then we have another small, much smaller tree, 12-inch diameter, I believe, on the south side of the building, which is going to have to be removed to get the sidewalk in. So, you know, we will come back with our next submission, propose plantings as we need to make up for those 2 trees.
Yeah, if you could put those on the plan. Somebody submitted an application a day ago or 2 days ago for the removal of those trees, but you could do it within this project and show the replacement and everything.
Sure.
All right,
So you don't feel there's anything in the February 26th engineering memo that you're going to have a problem with?
I do not. I was quite pleased with it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm,
mentioned some, you know, that, you know, Anthony wanted to see the increase and the decrease numbers for the impervious area. That's no problem. We have to submit the official survey for the property. We did utilize a survey that was done by Gabriel E. Senor, I believe. Valerie brought up the fact that the driveway is slightly over the property line on the northeast corner of the building near that. It's at the maximum, it is over the property line is 2 feet. So I'm not sure how we handle that, but it's an existing condition.
Whose property is that?
To the north? Or
It's a church. There's 2 churches that meet there.
All right.
getting better.
Will they need to get an easement to, for that intrusion?
It exists already.
It exists, so I don't know if they
Grandfathered
get a
in.
letter from them, notarized letter saying,
Got no objection.
having fun.
Will that do it?
We have to consider
I
that.
like wine.
Okay.
Oh, when they come back.
So we're not 100% clear about what's required with that intrusion into your neighbor. If you could get in touch with the building department, they should be able to give you a path forward with that.
Thank you. We'll do that. Other than that, I think that's all I have to offer. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay.
The only question I want to raise is, I mean, this all looks great. The only question I want to raise is something that the chair of the traffic committee in Dobbs Ferry raised with me, and I don't know if you're aware of it yet. I know Dan is, that in the rebuilding of the work that the state's getting ready, do you know about this, the crosswalk? And, okay, so there's a crosswalk that is going to be called for, that's going to go from the north corner of, I guess, is it Sherman? What is the street that's opposite your driveway? Is it Sherman? Is that,
no, Sherman.
No.
Sure, there's more.
which is this one? Well, anyway, you can see it on your site plan. You see the, okay.
It looks like Sherman to me.
Okay.
There, down in the south.
Right, so they want to do a crosswalk across. Well, in order for them to do the crosswalk, they need a, whatever the code compliant or whatever, corner ramp
Right.
is. And since you're redoing the driveway, the chair of the traffic committee suggested, and it certainly seemed like it made sense to me, that be put in the right place in the bargain, so that because otherwise, the DOT won't do the crosswalk unless so rather than you doing your driveway and then us tearing it up in order to put a curb ramp in to make the sidewalk work. And I think the engineering drawings from DOT show.
Yeah, and also they will need a permit from the New York State DOT for the work in the right-of-way, so.
Anyway.
They're gonna pick that up, I'm sure, I hope.
Okay.
When they apply for that
Good.
permit.
So that's the only thing. So I guess as Dan said, I guess it's gonna come up anyway, but
Right.
I was asked to raise it.
One thing I failed to mention, that we are redoing both driveway entrances.
Right.
Ingress and egress.
So the curb ramp could be part of that, of the southern driveway.
I
Yeah,
will look into that and
yeah, that'd be great.
coordinate that.
You could share the drawings we have with you also.
Yeah, they look like they located and.
Already, okay.
So.
So we're not doing it twice.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. So do we have a resolution?
Call for a public hearing?
No, this would be either
Oh.
I think so.
call for
Let's just,
public
Okay.
hearing.
Should we call for a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I move we call for a public hearing in our next meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. Okay. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, yep.
Next item on our agenda, item number 4, 83 Main Street, referral from the Board of Trustees for recommendation for a proposed renovation of an existing barn building. I move that I move that we have a renovation. I mean,
Hey, Steve.
what else is
I think,
there to say?
Steve, you'll be able to be brief, because this is gonna, you can be brief. 'cause
Isn't
it's
that
gonna be a
double
slam-
days?
It's gonna be a slam
It's
dunk.
83,
Double days.
isn't 83 Main double
The
days?
access is off.
Is it out,
83 Main is double days.
is it out and back?
This is the barn in the back.
Ah.
The access is.
The
The access is from Palisades.
Yeah,
Barn in the
thank you.
back.
Yeah, I know, I was a little confused with that, but I had to look it up and study it.
Great barn.
I was like, I didn't know there was a barn back there.
I think when we were walking Palisades all the time, trying to come up with the
But it's a drive.
guidelines.
Okay,
Yeah,
Steve
you
Gilly,
could
22 Elm
Yeah.
Street. I'm here with
see up in
Allison Hartnett, Kevin's daughter, and representing the family. And this is my favorite subject in Dobbs Ferry, the vernacular barns. This is the opportunity to turn one of those. Well, since I occupy 3 of them myself, this is an opportunity to have a brother-sister relationship to another inhabited, wonderful inhabited barn, not far away. So you can see that this is the aerial view of Main Street and the barn in the back of Yes Doubledays. Right here, well, and Doubledays on Main Street, and this barn is in the back. It's been there for quite a while. I'm going to show you the evolution, if you bear with me. I can't help but go back in time. And the adjoining properties are actually both owned by, what's going on? Okay, here we go. Oh, you're doing it, okay, thank you. You can see there's a gallery referred to the entrance, which is that red arrow coming off of Main Street back to the property that's in the rear. And that has a fence that separates the beer garden so that you don't wander home late at night and accidentally wander
This is the zoning. You can see this is right on the boundary between MDR2 on Palisade Street and the DB zone. So this is in the DB zone, abutting the residential MDR2 zone. And this is how it looked a while ago, in kind of in some trouble, but well braced, and with the original siding still there, original windows still there, and this is back in 2017.
That was actually additional structural support?
That was, yeah, some temporary bracing, I guess. I wasn't really paying too much attention to the barn at that point, but here's, we first started looking at the barn back then, and then engaged a structural engineer to help us stabilize it so that it wasn't going to go south. This is what the barn looked like when we first got there. This is what the barn looks like from Palisade Street, and with a plywood roof as part of the stabilization permit that we put through and the work that we've done. So that we're now on the cusp of trying to actually take this to the next step. That's what this application is about, to make it a studio repair location, which is very similar to the uses that it's had historically over the years, and a loft apartment, studio apartment on the next level up. So we'll go to the next. This is my little history of buildings on the back of, there's an animation, which is a nice thing, I guess. Buildings on the back of Main Street that you can see along the line of boundary, there's a whole population. If we go to the next one, this is 1893, and just by the way, you can see what's going on in my property at the corner of Elm and Main. It's just one corner building and then the little barn that abuts the aqueduct. But this is the little collection of outbuildings, which is generally the location of the current Doubleday barn. So this is another Sanford map from 1900, so 7 years later, and things are much more clear, and you can see we now have the we have new buildings sort of filling in, and in the back on Main Street behind Doubledays, you can see this structure showing up. Now that's, I think, you know, there may be some relic of that underneath this barn, but I think this is precursor. But it's just to show that there's been this wonderful set of uses in the back that have been kind of evolving over the years, and they keep changing their use, but they're very important to the life on Main Street because they're supporting their housing, important activities off of Main Street. So when we get to 1908, you can see there's there's a building that's a hay, flower, and feed, telephone exchange, and the Mohican Club. How cool is that? And then down here, we actually have American Express offices, which we don't have anymore. But so that's where Doubleday is. These four footprints that are Doubledays, and you can see the gap. Then the building north of that is not here anymore. The hay, flower, and feed is 91 Main Street, which the Hartland family also owns. And is a apartment at this point. But that little empty lot is now a parking area at 491 Main. And then here's the precursor. So here we go on looking down Main Street in that same year, 1908, historical photograph, and let's see if we can go to the next one. Yeah, there's 91. That was the hay, flower, and feed, but it's now obviously become apartments. wonderful cornice disappeared. You look at the building now, but, oh well, and then that's double days, and that actually is the building, it's double days, it's, it looks pretty good right now. And so then looking the other way, you see, now we're looking up from, this is where Climbing Wolf is, and you can look up and we're seeing, again, those buildings on the left-hand side. So anyway, now we're getting into the project. I'm sorry about that. Bear with me, history. But this is the ground floor, and we've actually found the old doors, so we're going to have this recess. The doors swing open. There's a new staircase that's going in the corner, and that will have access for the tenant to get up to the second floor. The first floor's use is studio, repair, light industrial. That's a lower level of use than it doesn't require as much parking as retail. Right? So we have about 779 square feet. There's one space required for that use. For 1,000 square feet is required. One space per 1,000 square feet, so we have less than 1,000. Arguably, there have been a history of uses. This is been in use as the current use, if you can see from the picture from 2017. So arguably, it's not a new use being put into this building, and you can see the argument I presented for saying that by section 348, there's some possibly no need to provide parking at this point for that. Since it's been in use, there has been no parking. Whatever parking has been found in the common parking.
The current access is from Palisades, right?
The current access has always been from Main Street.
Really?
It happens that building, that again, the property on Palisade Street is in common ownership, but it's a separate property. The access has always been from Main Street.
So there's no easement for access from Palisades?
No, there's no easement.
Okay.
At this time.
But since you own both properties,
The property line goes
Both
this property and that property, but it is the Hartnett's property.
okay, got it, thank you.
Yeah. So you can see we have a restroom, storage room, and then open space that's been stabilized. Quite high ceilings, so that there's a lot of potential uses in there. And then if we go to the second floor, you can say it's open. What we've done on the second floor is created one shed dormer on the double day side, and then three little dormers facing Palisade Street for the light and air. And really, those dormers are really more for light and air than for square footage, because they come down so that the amount of space that really is considered habitable space, which is 5 feet, is the total is 105 on both sides. So on the west side, it's probably 60 square feet of space that's 5 feet that is considered habitable space is being added. So minimal. The footprint isn't changing. There's this minimal extra habitable space on the second level. Okay, the next is these are the elevations. You can see the north elevation at the bottom left with the sliding, the original doors, which are going to become sliding barn doors that will close off that little entryway. Shutters, and then this is the dormer facing double days. And we figured that if you're going to live up there, we'll probably be putting in triple glazed windows and, I lived once next to a firehouse on Main Street, and every Saturday night there was a cascade of bottles, and you get used to it, but really we figured that the more accommodating windows and dormers are on the west side facing Palisade Street. And this is the door entry. Oh, yeah, go ahead. shed dormer being posted up. And basically, at this point, we've stabilized, we've got new foundations in, we've done just basically structural stabilization. We've got the thing back to really being sturdy, and now we'd like to take the next step, and make it habitable. That's it.
That's great. And again, the BOT ultimately votes on this. We just are here, we're gonna make a recommendation, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
All right.
let's do it.
So there's no actual parking associated with this structure at this point?
There's no parking. There's a requirement for the studio of a parking space. So Kevin and Allison are reviewing their options for providing that parking space. So they'll, I mean, obviously it's something that's in line for discussion. We'll, I guess, come back to the proposal.
So currently, just the whole driveway thing again, I'm a little confused. So people currently drive from Main Street to access the barn, correct?
They walk.
Oh, they walk.
Bike.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's no vehicular access.
You can't drive there.
It's
Okay.
always been in the thing in the back. And of course, for a while, it was a plumber used it, and it was, I think, Litnick was actually.
Yeah.
And they, I think they were able to get in where the beer garden is. But the beer garden is the beer garden. So that's foreclosed.
We don't want to touch that.
That's foreclosed.
That's working out?
Option when that was, that was approved and so on. Actually, the barn has been inhabited. Kevin's brother was, slept there for a while, a number of years ago, I guess, and it's been used in conjunction with Doubledays, but it's also been used independently as a workshop. And so
if you have to drive there, you access through Palisade.
yeah,
and
you have
that's
to- you
what
have
I
to
thought on the map, so.
First up in, there is the adjoining parking area for 91 Main, which does go back there, and there's possible access from that towards the front, towards that north door of the building, which is, just over here.
Right.
So there is a little, the old building that I was showing you actually occupied the corner of the property. This one is now set off, which is why I think it's not a relic of the original.
So is there some formal thing that we can do at this moment?
Just if you'd like to confirm a recommendation back to the Board of Trustees, and if you have any specific recommendations you'd like me to pass on to them, I usually do like a memo, right, and then I usually copy you on the memo.
Oh, good.
I move that we develop or have developed a memo to send to the Board of Trustees
Expressing our
in
enthusiastic
recommending
support.
this.
All in favor?
Plus the continuing education credits we get for the
Right.
lecture that, it's a win-win-win-win.
Right. Well, so I'm now the president of the AIA chapter, I can give you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
2?
All right.
Thank you. So
All right.
do we have to have
Thank
an
you.
official, do we have to have an official vote? Yes, we have to have an official vote.
Just authorize the sending of the memo.
Yeah, just to authorize the sending of the.
What? I'm sorry.
We need to have a vote authorizing sending the memo.
You just need a motion and a
Okay.
second to vote.
Okay.
Authorizing.
I move that we
Authorize-
Good night, thank you.
send the memo.
Sorry I had to wait.
Second?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. It's easy.
Sticklers.
All right, no, we still have one other.
No, we
one
still
more-
have the zoning recommendations, sorry.
Down, boy.
So the Board of Trustees sent over a number of zoning amendments they're looking to undertake. I don't know if if everybody had a chance to look at the different zoning amendments, if you have questions, if you'd like to kind of highlight anything.
Well, I'd like some clarity on the whole steep slope issue, and you got my email about my concern about the wishy-washy language.
Yeah, so, so at this point, you know, I believe that there was some additional, from the last time you sent sent your comments, there were some additional tweaks to it. But at this point, the board is proposing not to move forward with actual steep slope deductions, but the language that's being proposed in terms of when you review steep slopes when you review an application, that, you know, steep slopes development of 15% or greater than 15%, but less than 35%, that to mitigate impacts, the approving authority should seek permanent preservation of such areas by such means of the use of innovative site design, or if no practical alternative to such disturbance exists, the minimum disturbance necessary shall be permitted by the approving authority to ensure property owner a reasonable use of their property. And then the second level is when a development is more than 35%, or greater steep slopes, that the approving authority would find, so first of all, the concept is to actually preserve those areas, but if those areas cannot be preserved, that the board having the approval jurisdiction shall require that the implementation of appropriate engineering methodologies to prevent slope instability and erosion or sedimentation, and that the board having approval jurisdiction may permit a driveway across those particular areas, and also that you have a finding that the property cannot be reasonably developed without the disturbance of the steep slopes of 35% or greater.
Okay.
Well, that just gives them they can just say, well, I can't do the project without disturbing the land that's more than 35.
I mean, that's up to you if you feel that that's, you know, if you found that argument adequate. I mean, I think.
I don't think that gives us the tools we need to do responsible development.
Right, so I think the real issue is, and this is what I've presented to the board, and I'm happy to bring back to the board whatever comments you have, is that they have a couple different options. You can have steep slopes permits, which then requires that every time somebody's going to disturb a steep slope has to come before a board to pull a permit. There are a tremendous amount of steep slopes in Dobbs Ferry, so most of your properties would require that. So I think the board felt that that was too restrictive. Then you have the next level down, which is the steep slopes deductions. But the board felt that the language for that was not as clear as to just because you deduct for steep slopes doesn't mean you can't build on the steep slopes. So they felt that they wanted to go towards the more flexible language of having the approving authority take a look at the site plan and to try to avoid construction on steep slopes as possible. So that's what they're proposing. If you want to suggest bringing back the steep slopes deductions, we can do that, or if you want to go the permit process, we can recommend, I can recommend.
I'm not sure I'm against the idea of where they're trying to go, but I don't think that language, I just think as a developer, you can say, hey, this is the best I can do, you know, and you know, you have, you know, then it's a construction of right or something. You know what I mean? It's not a hard and fast rule where you can say you are violating this scenario, therefore you will be denied.
Well, and I'm not trying to.
I'm just going to say this is the best we can do.
Right.
Too bad.
I'm not trying to argue one way or the other, but you know, you just spent a lot of time tonight talking about an AHRB application, which has even less guidelines. So, and you found that there was a way to.
Very Talmudic.
Right. So my point is, I think you have the ability to have that discussion with an applicant.
Right. No, but I think I'm not actually afraid. I mean, I know what you're saying, and I have to say I'm not afraid of that extra discretion, I think. Well, we have lots of times, we have developers come before us and they say, that's the best I can do. Our friend at Lyman Place may come back to us next month and say, that's the best we can do. That doesn't, you know.
They have to prove it.
That doesn't mean we can't push.
Well, I mean, I guess one of the reasons, you know, I can think of a couple scenarios where that kind of language has failed us. And, you know, for example, the Rudy site development. okay? It's clearly in the LWRP, and some other places in the code saying, you know, we want you to respect that view, which is like the primary view in the whole village to a large extent. You turn into the gateway there, and that used to be, you know, you see the Hudson River and the Palisades and all that stuff. Their plan was to block it all off. And I was like, well, you know, the problem with fighting that is the language was so wishy-washy. Yeah, it said, please try and respect these views. And that was it. You know, and of course the developer said, I tried, I couldn't, I can't make it profitable, so screw the village. And, you know, I'd like to avoid being in that position again.
Right, so I think, well, for the LWRP, you actually have more teeth than you think, because you can find it not consistent with your LWRP. And then that effectively causes difficulties for the developer. So I don't know if that was expressed to you during that time period, but that's besides the point. I mean, if you want, so we're basically the board, they've asked me to reach out to the other zoning board, conservation advisory committee. So there's a number of, and I think the tree commission, so they all receive the same. So you have a little bit of time if you don't want to give an official recommendation now, but want to play around with the language, if you want to take a look at what's being suggested, and if there's some suggested tweaks to it that might, you know, help, you know, get this into, you know, I guess, text that you feel more comfortable with, then I think the board would be open to that. You know, I know clearly, I think there are definitely going to be maybe some other boards that are going to have different opinions and want to go back to the, you know, steep slopes deductions. I'm not even sure if the full board agrees with one process over another. So they're just, you know, looking for feedback. But I think, unfortunately, Dan needs some guidance from the board at some point dealing with the steep slope issue because of the definitions and the interpretation that the ZBA made.
So now are you in the middle of this? Can I float my concerns directly to you first until and see if there's a way that something we can present to a broader group?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if you'd like, you can send me your edits or whatever, and then we can, you know, I can always, I guess, Dan, it's all right if I circulate that amongst the board, right? They don't, yeah, so we can circulate it amongst the board, and if the planning board feels comfortable with like, yeah, let's move that towards the, to the village board, then we can do that.
I wouldn't want to waste one other person's time with my
Well,
crazy ideas until I.
There's one other person I'm gonna recommend you waste their time.
Okay.
Michael Patino.
Yeah, he seemed very vested in this.
Right, I would talk to him. I mean, I think, since he's the biggest advocate for this change, I think it'd probably let him make his case to you and see if you're convinced. But I think, and he'd be happy to talk to you.
Well, he sort of did the other, you know, when we
Yeah,
talked
that's true.
recently. And,
That's true.
that's why I'm sort of respecting his argument here, and I want to see if there's a way to make it work.
Well, I also think that one of, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of his arguments was that you know, building on a steep slope, there's better engineering now, right? Which is why they want to reduce the slope. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think the original tax went in 1989. So since then, there has been better engineering dealing with stormwater runoff associated with.
Right,
like,
but what about other environmental impacts? Does that, you know, just like removing, not necessarily water runoff, but.
No, I agree with all that, you know, that there are ways to stabilize that. And I've literally seen dwellings built into cliffs in my hometown.
Does it necessarily mean?
But, you know, I have an argument, like if you put the house on that, right, it's fine, it makes perfect sense, right? Now, if you have a 45-degree slope and you put that house on there, you know, all of a sudden it's covering up a giant part of that, you know, that horizontal plane.
Right.
And it seems like there's got to be some limits there.
Right.
Which is what the previous calculations were trying to do.
Right.
And there may be another way to get to the same place.
A little bit, because the previous one, you could do your deduction, but you could still build your house on the steepest part of your property.
If
There
you
was
had the right-
nothing keeping you away from that. You could go with the net lot, and it doesn't protect the steep slope 100% either.
I mean, theoretically, the board could adopt both, right? Because they're kind of two different, one's a deduction calculation and one is like more language in terms of focusing on steep slopes. So you theoretically could even the board could adopt both, but I think right now they're proposing to go in this direction versus the other.
And
Well, let
there's
me
no
ask-
best practices for
Well-
other hilly places?
Well,
Really
there
smart?
are, I mean, a lot of community, well, so this is what I explained to them, like, a lot of communities do have steep slopes permits, and, you know, but when you're dealing with the river towns,
There's
a
so many.
lot of them at this point, especially because of the history and how many, you know, homes have been built on basically steep slopes, a lot of them tend not to have as many as steep slopes permits. But like Croton-on-Hudson does have a steep slopes permit requirement, and then you have to come back every time and you have to go to a board and get a steep slope permit if you're gonna develop. But, I mean, I did show them a map of Topsbury, and like pretty much
The whole thing is a steep
entire
slope.
community is a steep
Well,
slope.
especially in the areas that are, you know, undeveloped. You know, there's not a
Right.
whole lot of places
Well, but
left.
see, that's the thing. The difficulty is like, if you did a steep slopes permit, if somebody's doing an addition, they would have to pull the steep slopes permit. And technically, this would also fall into, come into play if anybody's doing an addition. So you have seen a number of additions on steep slopes.
Right.
So, you know, any steep slopes regulations that they adopt would affect those.
Okay. Did we want to talk about trees?
Yeah, so the trees, these are recommendations from the Tree Commission and the Conservation Advisory Board that the village board agreed to move forward. And they're proposing to reduce the diameter breast height of trees that are regulated from 8 inches to 6 inches. And then we did have some exemptions in for a tree removal permit, but there was concerns that a lot of people were trying to circumvent pulling the permit by claiming the exemptions. So now we're proposing an administrative process. So it's administrative permit process for those types of trees that fall under the exemptions. Invasive species is not exempted. It was part of the original proposal to the board, and the board and the public didn't want to have invasive species exempted. So that was removed. So the adoption, that was something that was definitely discussed with the village board at prior iteration of the tree law before it got adopted. But if that's something that the board wants to bring back, which was what the 125 Bel Air was raising, I can always recommend, you know.
I guess the thing with the invasive species, and I haven't been really, I didn't follow the whole discussion about how the Tree Commission and the Conservation Commission came up with this, but if the idea is some environmental notion that, invasive or not, a tree sucks up a certain amount of carbon out of the air or provides a certain amount of habitat, then you know, I'd say, well, then, you know, I wouldn't exempt, then if that's, like, I don't know if that's what they were thinking. If that's what they were thinking, then I could imagine you'd say, well, invasive or not, it's green, it's cool.
It's a
birds
canopy.
nest in it, it does all that stuff. So I don't, I guess I'm sorry that the previous owner didn't chop down all these little invasive things as they were happening. I mean, I had bamboo on my property that was growing into my neighbor's yard, and I had to cut it back and put in a barrier. And you know, and so the previous owner probably wasn't taking care of it and just let these things spawn and grow. And that's an unfortunate burden for the new owner. But if the idea is a kind of a fundamental, just maintaining a certain mass of green in the village, then invasive or not, I feel like it should be replaced. But I don't know.
No, I don't really have a
That's
problem
my-
with the invasive species. I
It
mean,
should be replaced or shouldn't be?
That they should,
Should be
that the
replaced.
same
Should be.
burden
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
pertain,
Right.
you know, you're taking out a certain amount of biomass.
I mean, but that's what they're doing in Hillside Woods. They're cutting down all the maples, but the Norway maples, but
That's a little different, because that has like a larger ecological, like a net benefit. If they could produce someone who would say that reducing these, cutting down like all these Norway maples on my property is a net benefit to the environment, that would be another story.
Well, here's my next question. So if you have, so, I grew up kind of in the country, and we would thin the forests around our house so that you get fewer big healthy trees instead of a lot of spindly sickly trees. Now, does the code encourage that?
Well, I mean, as long as it's less than 6 inches, it doesn't count as a tree.
That doesn't matter. Sometimes we cut down 2-foot trees because there was a 3-footer and a 3-footer
That's-
nearby, and they were competing, and they were all sickly.
Right now, the code requires you to pull a tree permit.
Yes.
And you
Well,
could petition, I mean, you could
It's a little
argue that
different
with the,
environment.
It might be.
I
but-
think it's suburban.
But now, how did
urban
the new
forest.
construction on Hollywood do that? That place was heavily forested.
right, they're gonna be, they either
They
did
must
the
be-
replacement, they either have to meet the replacement or they pay in lieu of.
I assume they did, right? I mean, I
But how did they
assume-
get to 40
They
grand?
didn't really cut down a lot of trees there.
They didn't, because that house was,
I think there's like 6 trees they're taking down.
really
too.
interesting.
With 125 Bel Air, what they're proposing, like the rear yard patio area that they're proposing, and then all the work they're proposing in the front is what's causing the trees needing to
I
be.
thought it was like $500 to,
It's per inch.
$375 per inch,
oh, really?
up to half the diameter of the tree. The other reason why they kept the Norway maples in is because Dobbs Ferry right now, its tree canopy is at 37%, and it should be 50%. So we're deficient, so they're trying to just keep that canopy,
Is that right?
whether
I'm
it's the
surprised
Norway
with
maple.
All of the, of course, Hillside Woods doesn't belong to us, but with all the kind of, I'm surprised.
Well, in our neighborhood, it's got to be at least 50%.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But then there are other neighborhoods now that I'm thinking that are much denser, don't really have much tree canopy.
I think that's it.
Who actually did that? Who actually?
There's a
did the assessment?
website that you could go on, and it'll show you every municipality.
They do it just probably with aerial photography, right?
Yep.
I'm sure they.
How much is
Yeah,
it during
not
the
walking
state?
around.
Got some kind of algorithm running around.
I'll send you it, Dave Duarte, I can't think of it right now, he sent it to me. But, it's pretty interesting.
Okay.
It does Westchester, and then you could break out and do each, municipality.
Yeah, interesting.
So you don't really even have a right to a yard, right, without paying, as trees grow? You know where I'm coming from? So you have, let's say you have all these trees in your yard, you've got in your yard, and you've got a little piece of grass in the middle. As those trees grow, they completely block all the way from, you can't have a garden, you can't have a lawn, any of those things without paying some huge amount, cut down the tree?
Well, I mean, I guess,
That's
I
it.
mean,
Just have
again.
to-
How can that even be legal?
Well,
That's what this guy's saying.
well, I
Not
mean,
exactly.
but I think that's, I mean, you always had to pull a permit in Dobbs Ferry, but you didn't have to do replacement. And so I think that was the biggest change from, the first round of regulations was to require replacement. And then if you can't replace, then you pay in lieu of.
Right, but it means you gotta pay some giant number to just have a little vegetable garden?
No, because you probably,
No,
I don't think that's a
because
real
you
scenario.
can plant 4 arborvitaes that aren't gonna shade your whole property.
Yeah, but their trunks are like this.
Yeah, so.
They count for a certain
If you
amount.
count 4 of them,
It's like a 10 or 12
12
footer
inches.
count is like for a 3-inch tree.
So what's a replacement?
If you don't want
I mean,
it.
is it gonna be a shrub or?
No, there is certain shrubs they do accept, but like, they'll say a 10 or 12 foot arborvitae is equal to like a 3-inch tree.
Okay.
You've been approving these replacement plans for about almost a year now. Every time they come before your board and you have a landscaping plan you're reviewing.
I was just on
Right.
a phone call today with the Village of Ardsley, and they love our tree code, and they're gonna adopt ours pretty much the same way. They've looked at a lot, and they said Dobbs Ferry's is the one they like the most.
But it's like that oak tree on the Lafergie project, right? We did a little research, and there's, by cutting that tree down and letting them put solar panels on their roof, we had a 400 times carbon reduction over what that tree would do. And we didn't know that until we researched it.
With the solar,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, that's why this seems rigid to me somehow.
Well, I think right now, I mean,
You just wanted us to tighten the screws on the steep slope. Come on, man, either you're an umpire or you're a cop. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Or Alan, you can always have a
an
arborist.
outfielder.
Write a
We've
letter.
actually logged our land in Vermont, but
If the tree is bad, it can come down with no replacement.
Right, if it's a dangerous or hazardous.
no, which we did on my property. And, you know, we cut that thing down and there were limbs like this that just had an inch of wood on it.
Right.
And it was right over my bedroom.
so I think, so bottom line is the board is looking for recommendations on all these zoning, all the zoning. And they're planning to bring it, potentially call for a public hearing, you know, within like the first meeting in April. I think they would like to call for a public hearing. So if this board has any comments or thoughts or.
And did you send us a recent update of this?
Yeah, actually Sarah did.
Okay.
Couple.
Yeah, I think I saw it,
I
yeah.
think I did see it.
Okay,
yeah.
just so we're working off the most recent.
Yeah, I just want to make
proposal.
sure that we saw the, okay.
All right, well, thank you everyone for hearing me.
No, it's
So what kind of vegetables are you gonna grow?
I can't because of the varmints. So I can grow hot peppers, I get a few tomatoes, and I can grow herbs, but everything else I
Really,
grow.
right, what I really want is the right to hunt deer. That's the
man.
change I want in the code.
Well, I don't know why they
With-
don't allow
with
bow
assault
hunting. and,
rifle,
You know,
huh?
I don't know why they don't allow bow hunting with stands in hillside woods. That would be great. People can eat them, and there's a 10 times overpopulation.
There used to be a guy that hunted
I don't know about that.
years ago. He
Oh, we have to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think we already.
No, we
threw
didn't.
the arrows.
No, you
Like
have
200
to-
employees? Oh,
Yeah, he wound up
Right,
running
I
out.
move we-
Board member, just so, because they.
I move we adjourn.
I second.
It's gonna be exactly.
All in favor, say
of
aye.
adjourning?
Aye.
aye.